In honor of Black History Month, I'll show you 5 black heroes that changed history to what we know it today. Some of them you may have never heard of. It was cold when S. Allen Counter had finally arrived in Greenland. Being from U.S. Georgia, he wasn't acclimated to the northern climate. He heard rumors of dark-skinned Eskimos and thought maybe they were related to his hero. Counter and an interpreter asked around and was directed to a house in a small settlement in northern Greenland. When the door was answered, they said they were looking for the son of my plug, which means Matthew the Kind One. He laughed and said it was him. This now 80-year-old man was the son of Matthew Henson, the first man to step foot on the North Pole. Henson was born in 1866 in Maryland, but spent much of his childhood in Washington, D.C. At the age of 12, he worked as a cabin boy on board a 3-masted ship. For 6 years, he was taken under the wing of the captain, who taught him technical skills and how to be a competent sailor. A few years later, he worked as a shop clerk where he met Perry, who was a naval officer. After finding out Henson spent some time on the sea, he offered him a job as his personal assistant. From there, they sailed to Nicaragua, and Perry saw how competent he was as a seaman. He told him of a great expedition he was thinking about. They would be the first people to travel to the geographic North Pole. It was a dangerous voyage that already claimed the lives of several men. There was precise planning and preparation that needed to be done. Henson agreed. In 1891, they started their exploration of Greenland and completed a map of the area. They discovered the northernmost region of Greenland and found enormous meteor fragments. The fragments were sold to the Natural History Museum in New York and would fund their travels for the next decade. With his skills as a carpenter and craftsman, Henson personally built and maintained all of the sleds used on their expeditions. He was near fluent in the Inuit language and established a rapport with the native people of the region. He was known by all he encountered as Matthew the Kind One. In 1906, they departed for their final voyage. The destination? To reach the North Pole. With a hand-picked team, they took a ship to the furthest distance they could. Then they would travel by dog sled while avoiding ice cracks. Food was scarce. Fortunately, they had teams travel ahead of them to drop caches of food along the way. They made it past the landmass of Greenland and was now traveling on ice guided by the tool the sextant. But Perry was sick and got frostbite. He had to stay in the safety of his sled, covered up. After enduring the frigid climate and dodging ice splits and drifts for weeks, they had made it to the North Pole. Henson claims to have been the first person on his team to set foot on the North Pole, therefore, the first person in the world. Henson also had relations with the Inuit women and ended up having a son, who, 80-some years later, came to watch his father transferred to the Arlington National Cemetery and was reburied alongside his friend Perry. Gloria Watkins, or better known as Bell Hooks, was born in the Jim Crow era in Kentucky. Hooks established herself as one of the most prominent feminist intellectuals and radical thinkers, addressing subjects like capitalism, education, masculinity, beauty, and love, writing many books that have influenced generations and challenged what it meant to be a feminist. But her accomplishments weren't from an easy upbringing. Born into a segregated town and began school in segregation, she learned about inequality at a young age. She suffered abuse from her father and had a persistently strained relationship with her mother. She found solace in her grandmother and her mostly black teachers. they fostered her confidence and self-esteem. She would go on to publish many influential books. Her book, Ain't I a Woman, was groundbreaking in feminist theory when it was published in 1981. In detail, it describes how racism and sexism are not separate issues. They are, in fact, deeply intertwined in our culture and history. Therefore, race, gender, and class must be addressed together for lasting change. Scholars would call this concept intersectionality. In her career, she would call out civil rights and feminist movements for ignoring the plights of Black and working-class women. She even challenged the sexism she saw in the Black liberation movements. But she consistently got pushback on her radical ideas of true equality. She seemed to move through life with tenacity and love. She believed in the power of naming problems clearly and boldly. Even in public appearances, she had a signature look between a smirk and a smile, an air of confidence, maybe even defiance. She would present this look when an attack was disguised as a question from an audience member. She chose the pen name Bell Hooks after her great-grandmother, who was known to have sharp opinions. The name was written in all lowercase to put less emphasis on her and more on the words on the page. She taught at multiple universities, including Yale, and she joined Berea College in Kentucky as a distinguished professor in residence in 2004. Bell Hooks never stopped writing, and she never stopped teaching. He was fixing X-ray machines and repairing vehicles. He even taught other soldiers on electrical circuitry. But that wasn't his biggest accomplishment. He would eventually be known for his advancements in refrigeration that would be used all over the world. In the First World War, Frederick Jones served as a sergeant in the U.S. Army. He helped his crew by wiring telephones and telegraphs that would serve as essential communication to the command. Jones was from humble beginnings. In 1893, he was born in Kentucky, just on the other side of the river from Ohio, but would spend much of his life in Minnesota. As a single father, Jones Sr. was struggling to raise him. He tried putting Jones up for adoption at local orphanages, but was denied by all of them because he was Black. By age 7, they found Father Ryan at a Catholic church that would take him in. Just 2 years later, the priest told Jones that his father had died. Father Ryan encouraged his habit of tinkering alongside his chores. At a time when cars were just coming out, he took an interest in auto mechanics and would help fine-tune people's cars while they were at church service. But by the age 11, he thought school and his life at church were too dull and rigid. He ran away to Cincinnati and found work at a car garage. He worked his way from cleaning the garage to being the shop's foreman by age 15. He loved cars, not only fixing them, but racing them too. But his boss wasn't too keen on it and fired him for racing while he was supposed to be working. He seemed to clean up his act though, because by 20, he had earned an engineering license in Minnesota and was hired on a farm for mechanical work. After the First World War, he worked on a variety of projects, from long-distance phone lines connecting doctors and patients, to an approved patent for a movie theater ticket machine that gave correct change. Then, after hearing about a shipment of chickens that got overheated and died in transit, Jones and his business partner had an idea. Jones created the first prototype of a mobile refrigerator that could fit on trailers. The Model C refrigerator truck was revolutionary. Now, ships could transport perishable food so much easier. The military even picked it up and used it for field hospitals and keeping blood chilled. This alone saved so many lives that would have otherwise been lost. Fred Jones ultimately had 61 patents and was the first Black inventor to receive the National Medal of Technology in 1991, after his death. He was also inducted into the Minnesota Inventors Hall of Fame in 1977. It was January 1972. Shirley Chisholm just announced her run for presidency. She ran with the slogan, "Unbought and Unbossed." After serving as a congresswoman for over a decade, she was excited to bring change in a different capacity. She advocated for civil rights, anti-poverty programs, and education. But as a black woman, the first one to run for a major party, she experienced discrimination at every level and was at a clear disadvantage. While other candidates were able to televise their primary debates, Chisholm wasn't allowed for most of the campaign. Her campaign suffered both financially and politically as she didn't receive support from key contributors. She experienced discrimination even from her black colleagues. Although she didn't win the presidency, her efforts in Congress rippled across the country. Chisholm spoke of herself proudly as a Barbadian American. She was born in 1924 Brooklyn, but she had spent a significant part of her childhood in Barbados. While there, she would be raised by her grandmother and said she gave her strength, dignity, and love. After moving back to the States, she had an early interest in education. She also had a knack for leadership as director of the Friend in Need Nursery, then supervising 10 daycare centers and starting new ones. She started her political career in 1953 when she joined Wesley Holder's effort to elect the first black judge in Brooklyn. Chisholm had been part of several groups that advocated and pushed for civil rights. In 1964, she ran for the New York State Assembly, which is the lower house of the New York State Legislature. But being a woman, the UDC was resistant to supporting her, even though it was one of the groups she was a member in. She decided to appeal to women, using her role as Brooklyn branch president of Key Women of America. It worked. Between the Republican and Liberal Party candidates, none of them received more than 1,900 votes. Chisholm, however, got over 18,000. She would spend the next few years in this role. After redistricting of her congressional district, she felt compelled to run for Congress. Her opponent was James Farmer. They shared many positions, including housing, unemployment, and education. But Farmer was a candidate for both the Republican and Liberal Party. The campaign was fierce. Farmer focused on her gender, saying women have been in the driver's seat for too long, and the district needs a man's voice. She would respond back with how black men have been in office but have not delivered, and explained her unique qualifications. Chisholm won the general election at 67%. While serving in Congress, she was nicknamed Fighting Shirley. Chisholm supported education programs, daycare expansion, income support, and many, many other programs. She faced discrimination through every step of her career, and little did she know, she was an inspiration in the making. The crowd watched in amazement as stunt planes flew overhead. You could hear the loud engines in the Houston airfield. Plane after plane would perform dangerous loops and get too close to the ground. But they were waiting for the main show. They watched in awe as Queen Bess would perform 8-figure loops and spiraled up and down in the air. As a skilled stunt aviator, she knew how to keep an audience at the edge of their seats. This was, of course, the Queen of the Air. Elizabeth Coleman, better known as Bessie Coleman, was born in Texas in the year 1892. At a young age, she went to a segregated one-room school. She had a knack for learning, but she had to stop a few months out of the year to pick cotton. She was one of 13 kids, and her family faced harsh economic hardships. Coleman had an early interest in flying. But being black and a woman, there weren't any opportunities to get training or licensed. While working as a manicurist, she met Abbott, the owner of a successful black-owned newspaper. He loved her ambitions. Coleman had a plan. She would learn French and travel to France, where they would teach her to fly. She would save as much money as she could, and Abbott helped her secure the rest of the funding. After 7 months of study and flying, she earned her license and became the first black woman ever to earn the distinction. She could fly anywhere in the world. She came back to the States and was focused on mastering her craft. She would travel all around the world and learned from the best aircraft experts in the world. Coleman knew her role and took it seriously. She was not just a pilot, but a black role model. People looked up to her. While she performed countless shows, she refused to work in white-only venues. She didn't let them force her black fans through a separate entrance. She even walked out of a movie set where she was the star because she would be playing a poverty-stricken black woman. Coleman was a powerhouse of grit and talent and stood on principle. Unfortunately, in 1926, she and her co-pilot lost control of their plane. She was ejected and the co-pilot continued spiraling towards the ground. They both died on impact. Thousands of people showed up to her memorial. Coleman never had her dreams of founding a flight school for black pilots realized. There have been several schools named after her, and she has inspired countless others. If you would like to see more videos like this one, please like and subscribe.